It's the end of the 16th century, the age of chivalry and knighthood. Standing here in the center of St. John's Co-Cathedral, one is immediately struck by the romantic depictions of heroes of the Order of the Knights of St. John. Perhaps the most eloquent depiction of heroism is the Allegory of the Order above the main door. It recalls a great battle, the Great Siege, fought in Malta between the Knights of St. John and the Ottoman Armada. It's the 8th of September in the year 1565. The dust is settling, the searing sun scourging and blistering the backs of the few surviving knights and brave Maltese people. It's the end of one of the most legendary battles of Europe, the Great Siege of Malta, a battle that lasted almost 4 months. Overcoming this battle was a resounding victory for Catholic Europe. The Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent was a force to contend with, but Grand Master Jean de Valette was also a formidable character who rose up to the challenge. Exhausted but exhilarated from this resounding victory, the knights acquired a new confidence, as they realized the position of power they now exercised in Europe. Jean de Valette vowed to build a fortified city worthy of noblemen. And a few months later, he laid the foundation stone of this new city and gave it his name, Valletta. Pride of place in the center of the city, he planned to build the Knights' Conventual Church, dedicated to St. John the Baptist, the patron saint of the order. This would be their shrine, their religious headquarters, their powerhouse. We are reminded of this great battle painted on the wall by the artist Mattia Preti. Francesco Balbi da Correggio, the Italian soldier who fought as an arquebusier with the Spanish corps, gives us a first-hand account of the siege and tells us how on the last day of the assault on the fort of St. Angelo began at dawn. So great was the noise, he writes. The shouting, the beating of drums, and the clamor of hundreds of Turkish instruments that it seemed like the end of the world. In the center of this intriguing image, we see the Allegory of the Order. It is one of the best examples where we find art being transformed into a visual language, as an instrument to play upon the viewer's emotions and impress on them the cause of the order. In the center, there's Minerva. She's the goddess of wisdom and war, but war with just causes. And we see 2 angels descending from the skies about to crown her. There she stands dressed in armor, holding a sword in one hand and the flag of the order in the other. Even this has symbolic meaning. The red symbolizes the blood that must be shed for Christianity to reign, which is symbolized by the white cross laid upon it. Almost in dance, she crushes beneath her feet 3 Moorish slaves, signifying the order's victory over what the knights referred to as the infidels. Included in the scene are the 2 Spanish cotoner grandmasters, Raphael and Nicholas. Grandmaster Raphael points towards a picture of a galley representing their naval force, whilst Nicholas tends to the sick, which was the original mission of the order. Heaps of soldiers laying slain in battle and depicted on either side. From above, angels descend from the skies, holding palm fronds. They are the symbol of martyrdom and triumph. Nicholas, his reign, together with his brother Raphael before him, was the period when most of the Baroque embellishment of the church took place, including Mattia Preti's painting of the vault. From that day on, the display of triumph became the most prominent theme which we find carved and embellishing the rest of the church. This concern with triumph caused the church to be transformed into a celebration of military power. After all, to die for your faith was a heroic act. Several of the heroes that laid down their life in this battle are remembered here. One such soldier is Don Melchior de Robles. After a month of ferocious battle and the loss of Fort St. Elmo, the knights were already exhausted. Several attempts had been made to bring relief to the order, and finally 4 galleys arrived, carrying 600 soldiers, sent by the Viceroy of Sicily, reached Malta on the 28th of June. It brought much needed relief to the island and greatly raised the morale of the besieged. Commanded by Field Marshal Melchior de Robles, he is described by historians as a brave and experienced soldier. At that time, the battle was focused on taking Fort St. Michael. On August the 11th, Francesco Balbi writes that the enemy's bombardment lasted all day and night. Marshal Robles wanted to see for himself the damage that had been inflicted on the walls of the fortress. He went to the top of the embattlement. As he gazed down from the wall, not having worn his armor, he was hit in the head by a musket shot. He fell to the ground without a word. He lay in agony and died the following day. The marshal's death was a great loss, for he was truly beloved by his soldiers. His body was then laid to rest in the church of St. Lawrence, in a coffin covered with black velvet and with the 8-pointed cross emblazoned upon it. His tombstone, in fact, describes him as a great hero and as a fearful scourge to the enemy, and also says that with every drop of his blood, he saved the lives of hundreds. He lives on again. As soon as he died, his soul lives on triumphantly in heaven. The Calabrian artist Mattia Preti, who was commissioned to decorate this great vault, also portrayed several heroes of the order. Amongst them is Grandmaster Jean Parisot de Valette. Unfortunately, he died before he could see his conventual church completed. Fra Adriano la Riviera's heroic action during the Great Siege earned him a place in the cycle of saints and heroes that accompany the life of St. John the Baptist painted by Preti. Bosio records that he was captured whilst fighting bravely, but he was beaten and subjected to horrific torture so that he would be forced to give the enemy information about the battle plans of the knights. But he defiantly shouted, "It will do you no good to torture me. You will learn nothing from me, except that you will never take Malta." On hearing his defiant cry, he was immediately tortured to death, and his chest was cruelly carved open in the shape of a cross. Fra Melchior de Monsarrat was another knight that died during the Great Siege. He was Spanish from Valencia, attached to the Spanish Long of Aragon. The historian of the Order of St John, Giacomo Bosio, describes him as a valiant knight, an honest man of good habits and reputation, who through undying love for the Christian faith insisted on being appointed governor of Fort St. Elmo, at a time when the fort was about to fall to the Ottoman invaders. Apparently, he was personally chosen by the Grand Master to head the commission of Fort St. Elmo. During the battle, Monsarrat was so moved by the fearlessness of the knights that he readily presented himself to the most dangerous post at the firing line. Bosio recounts that, as fate would have it, the gallant knight was hit by a musket shot whilst he was trying to repair a cannon. This was the 22nd of June. Monsarrat died heroically defending Fort St. Elmo. The Italian knight Fra Vespiano Malaspina, who we see here sitting on the cornice, was one of the last knights to die as a martyr during the Great Siege of 1565. Little is known about his life. We only seem to know the tragic circumstances of his death, which was so close to the end of the Great Siege, just as the Turkish armada was about to retreat. In his portrayal of Malaspina, Bosio describes him as a devoutly religious and chaste man, with a reputation of having lived a truly holy life, di vita santissima. Bosio goes on to say how on the 6th of September, Fra Malaspina, while defending the post, tried to recover a palm frond when he was shot in the head by a musket. He fell to the ground without uttering a word. Mattia Preti depicts him here wearing his black monastic habit of the order. And according to Bosio's account, he portrays him holding the palm frond as a symbol of his martyrdom in his left hand. With his right hand, he points upwards towards the central episode, where John the Baptist preaches to soldiers that they should be content with their earnings, a direct reference to Malaspina's virtuous and humble life.